were founded in 1985. Our chairman, Len Jones, was ex-Navy Communications, then GCHQ, and fairly shortly after leaving there, set the company up and began making what you describe as encrypting modems that went into British embassies. The company was slowly dragged into other bits of business, and we're sort of returning now to where we started, which is encrypting data. And we started off encrypting data for the government, and now, in fact, that's our biggest customer for this at the moment, is UK government. We're involved in all sectors. So we got hundreds of customers spread all over the place. I mean, we've obviously got technology companies because they're very aware of the value of their own IP. And they seem to have a good understanding of the technology and what's involved. But we're also, with government regulation and guidance coming out, we're also picking up government business. And there's some sectors, some parts of government have always been aware of this. So we've supplied bits and pieces of the police force for quite some time. We also have bits of NHS, scattered pockets of business. We recently picked up business from an entire government agency, and we do have bits of local government. And the local government was one of the first adopters, really, which was quite an interesting case because it was initially it was a group of 300 social workers travelling with laptops, dealing in really quite sensitive information, doing a good job there, but then they're carrying around something that's a bit of a liability. And there was another product already in, but these aren't technical people. And encryption's always been the technical end of the computing spectrum, and user-friendliness and encryption haven't really gone hand in hand. So we set out to really try and make the most user-friendly product there, and actually got the competitor uninstalled and our product in there. It's now expanded and spread throughout the council. First of all, we're small, okay? So you can't meet much larger competitors head on. It's just a silly thing to do. So we need to sort of kick the ball into the long grass and actually take the discussion and look at the problems that they're just not focusing on. I mean, if you talk to the staff on our stand today, you know, you can see a group of salespeople, but actually amongst us you've got, you know, myself in disguise, company director. You've got engineers, R&D people, because it's really useful for them to listen directly to the questions they're asked. And the number of times we come back and go, wow, why did we get asked that? What a silly question. But if you follow it up, there's usually something quite sensible behind it. And so we set out to try and avoid the sort of pitfalls of encryption, which is confusing people and giving help desk far too much of a job to do in answering silly questions. So when the very first release of the product we put out, we made a free personal version available, which quite quickly there were sort of 10, 20,000 individual users scattered all over the place, different countries in the UK, wherever. And although under the terms of the free license, they were not entitled to any technical support, we answered every single phone call, email, and handled all of their questions. And we directed all of it straight through the development team. So you would sit in meetings going, we keep getting asked the same silly question. And you've got to answer that and say, if you keep getting asked, it's not a silly question. You're assuming a level of knowledge that is not every day. So if you watch our software, if you actually use it, you'll go, this is sort of dumbed down. It's the same thing underneath. But you know, my mother knows how to drive an automatic car, but she doesn't know how a gearbox works. If you see what I'm saying. Starting here, so today's the release of, we've added full disk encryption and removable media encryption, and we've added an enterprise server to our administration suite, which means that we're now providing people the means to manage the entire notebook, encrypt the entire drive, encrypt the entire computer, and also force policies for removable media, for example, so that you know, if you're going to let people use the things, but actually make sure they're encrypted. And that's launched today, that's what we're pushing now. But on top of that, I mean, I mentioned usability. One of the things we've always found quite frustrating about using encryption products, so before we actually wrote this ourselves, was that they're based on a single key per user. And that it doesn't have any other, it doesn't occur in human nature, human behavior anywhere else. We have a key for the thing and not the person. The key is for the house, the car, the office, the cabinet, whatever. And yet, we're expected with encryption to have a single key for each user. So if I want to protect something that a group of people can have, I need to encrypt it with everybody else's key. Well, actually, we don't do that in real life, in the rest of our lives. So we take the view, no, have a key for the entity. So there's a key for the project or the department or the client or the subject. And what that means is that, you know, if you're somebody that the administrator's given the keys to for that, anything that's posted into that directory, sent out on an email, any historical information for a project is immediately accessible to anybody in or joining the group. So again, we've tried to focus more on how human behavior works, because what we found is the greatest difficulty that companies have pushing out encryption is the fact it doesn't fit with the way people work, so it gets in the way, which tends to mean they either get into a mess or they try to find a way to avoid it. So you've got to wonder, how do these data security breaches happen? HMRC data loss, prisoner data and that type of thing. When the technology's existed for a long while, it's within government, it's within those organisations, and you can be fairly sure that somebody's done it because the tools they've been given are too clumsy. And we're working hard to make that the opposite case.